€350 million on the table, and Lamine Yamal could be heading to Paris. Is Barcelona about to lose their brightest star? Pep Guardiola and Manchester City is the greatest partnership in Premier League history finally coming to an end? United have done it again. They've swooped in and pinched one of the Bundesliga's finest defenders right under their rivals' noses. And at Spurs, De Zerbi means business. His first major signing as Tottenham boss is already in the bag. All this and much more in today's episode. Let's try and get to 300 likes on this video, and we'll be back tomorrow with more transfer madness. Drop a like and let's dive straight in. Morgan Rogers is a walking masterclass in smart recruitment. The lad couldn't quite cut it under the brutal demands at Manchester City, headed to Middlesbrough for a reset, and then Aston Villa quietly snapped him up for just £8 million in the summer of 2024. And now, the valuation looks very different. 17 goals in 44 games this season, a regular shirt under Tuchel with England, and the undisputed engine of Emery's entire system. The Sun claim Rodgers has outgrown Villa and is ready to walk through the exit door this summer. Villa don't tend to wave goodbye to their best players without a fight, but the club has some serious financial holes to patch up. Cashing in on their crown jewel for 80 million, potentially a record-breaking 100 million. That's not just a stroke of luck, that is cold, hard necessity. 3 of England's biggest clubs have already entered the race. Chelsea want to plug him into their never-ending recruitment machine. With Enzo Fernandez's exit looming, the Blues urgently need consistent output in the middle. Liverpool are in the mix too. Losing Salah has got the Merseysiders scrambling for creative firepower. Rodgers doesn't replace the Egyptian, not even close, but he gives you a genuine goal threat, and without their top scorer, that is absolutely critical. Then there's Manchester United, apparently ready to hand him the keys to yet another fresh rebuild. But there's a catch. Morgan wants to be lifting trophies now. Buying into a years-long construction project at Old Trafford simply doesn't make sense for him. So who walks away with the prize? The structured machine that is Liverpool, or the organised chaos of West London? Every transfer window starts with the exact same headache. If the backline is a shambles, no amount of stardust up front will save you. According to Florian Plettenberg, Nico Schlotterbeck is firmly on Ineos's shortlist. And the crucial detail here isn't just the name, it's the price tag. The defender has 1 year left on his deal. He hasn't ruled out a move, and 30 to 35 million in today's market looks almost suspiciously reasonable. Especially when we're talking about a left-sided centre-back you can actually build a system around, not just bung in to stop the bleeding. Why the sudden interest? Because United's defence this season has been a permanent work in progress. Lisandro Martinez remained what he has always been at United: talented, fragile, and perpetually unavailable. De Ligt kept dropping out of the picture. Yoro had to grow up far quicker than anyone planned, and Maguire was once again dragged back under the floodlights. This isn't a run of bad luck anymore. This is a structural problem. And while we're on the subject of structural problems, a huge chunk of you lot watching this video right now still haven't subscribed. Genuinely, you visit this channel more often than United players visit the treatment table, so do us both a favour and hit that subscribe button. Back to the Old Trafford board, the squad lacks depth, and more importantly, balance down the left. Schlotterbeck fixes exactly that. Left-footed, comfortable carrying the ball, steps into midfield without flinching, doesn't go to pieces under pressure. For a modern centre-back, those aren't luxury traits. They're the bare minimum. The concern, of course, is that every promising signing tends to look brilliant on a spreadsheet before colliding with the chaos of that dressing room. If this club genuinely wants a proper defensive line rather than another sticking plaster, this move makes complete sense. Does the hierarchy actually have a plan for Schlotterbeck, or are they just hoping it all falls into place on its own again? Tottenham Hotspur are sitting 1 point above the relegation zone. A club with a world-class stadium is now fighting a championship-level battle, pure and simple survival. Roberto De Zerbi has been brought in to steady the ship. But to implement his complex, structured style of play, the Italian needs proper footballers at his disposal, not the players currently struggling out there on the pitch. According to Team Talk, Spurs have begun testing the water around Gonçalo Ramos. PSG paid £60 million for the Portuguese striker back in the summer of 2023. The outcome? A classic Parisian investment. Spend a fortune, then park the player deep on the bench. Ramos has 2 years left on his contract and is desperate to find a club that actually plays him, rather than just letting him count the zeros on his payslip. Why chase an expensive striker in a relegation dogfight? Because Tottenham's attack is completely dysfunctional. Dominic Solanke had a brilliant debut season, but this year it's fallen apart. Injuries and loss of form have absolutely destroyed any consistency in the front line. Bringing in a striker isn't some boardroom indulgence, it's a flat-out necessity. De Zerbi needs an intelligent finisher to lead the line in a possession-heavy system. Ramos provides both clinical quality and tactical nous. Frankly, the deal makes frightening sense for everyone involved. PSG recoup at least some of their outlay, the player gets regular football, and De Zerbi gets a top-class asset to help drag his side to safety. The only real question is whether Ramos himself fancies swapping a Parisian bench for an absolute scrap at the bottom of the Premier League table. Manchester City currently resemble a perfectly engineered corporation that has suddenly ground to a halt, all because it's waiting on one man's decision. According to The Telegraph, Pep Guardiola has frozen all conversations about his future until May. He's got a year left on his deal, but the Catalan has gone completely silent on the matter. And the club's hierarchy? They're just quietly going along with it. No ultimatums, no deadlines, just a gentleman's agreement that lets the main architect of this entire project press the eject button whenever he feels ready. It's slightly surreal. The wealthiest club on the planet has voluntarily handed over the steering wheel, patiently waiting while their manager takes stock of how emotionally drained he feels come the end of the spring. Behind the scenes, everyone understands that Guardiola leaving isn't simply a managerial change. It would be demolishing the entire foundation. That's precisely why new sporting director Hugo Viana is quietly assembling a contingency shortlist. And here's the fascinating bit. The names on that list are Enzo Maresca, Xabi Alonso, and Vincent Kompany. City are so dependent on Pep that even the potential replacements are exclusively his former pupils. The club isn't looking for a new manager so much as a software update for an existing operating system, something to cushion the inevitable withdrawal symptoms. Guardiola wants to let the results of this season do the talking. Winning trophies could give him the spark to stay on, or they could give him the perfect full stop to his story. City's bosses are projecting total serenity, acting as though everything is going exactly to plan. Can this multi-billion-pound machine keep running if you remove the motherboard, or has everything achieved over the last decade been built entirely around a single human being? PSG are back on the hunt with the checkbook wide open. According to El Nacional, Nasser Al-Khelaifi has set his sights on Barcelona's most prized possession, Lamine Yamal. The Parisians are reportedly prepared to table a staggering €350 million. That smashes Neymar's all-time world record transfer fee by some distance. Yamal's current market value sits at around $200 million, but the Qatari ownership are deliberately going in with a colossal premium. The romantics will tell you that selling the future of the club is simply unthinkable. Yamal dictates matches, and he carries the tag of the most valuable footballer on the planet. But looking at the brutal financial picture, Barcelona are drowning in debt, and here is an offer the kid will simply never attract again at any point in his career. That money wipes out the financial damage in one stroke and funds an entirely new squad. Now, my channel obviously isn't Barcelona, but I am also gasping for air from a severe lack of your likes. This one especially goes out to the TV viewers watching from the sofa. You're sitting there consuming the content without leaving a trace. I get it, whoever designed the smart TV algorithm was clearly a sadist, and hitting like with a remote control feels like navigating an assault course. But dig deep and do it, for the sake of my personal financial recovery. Back to the Catalans. It's all very well banging on about loyalty to the badge until someone drops a check with that many zeros in front of you. Fans blindly believe Lamine will just keep improving forever, but reality doesn't care about that fairy tale. One serious injury, one sustained dip in form, and that golden asset suddenly looks far less appealing on the balance sheet. Weighing up that kind of risk is literally what the board are paid to do. And let's park the romantic nonsense about undying love for the home stadium. Neymar kissed the badge, swore his devotion to the Blaugrana, and then he saw the offer. We all know what happened next. You sell your icons at the very top before they become a liability through dressing room politics or decline. Barcelona face an agonizing choice between sentiment and cold pragmatism. What would you do with a €350 million suitcase on your desk? Cash in on Yamal to clear the debt? Or do you truly believe we're watching the next Messi unfold? Let me know in the comments. Meanwhile, back at the Etihad, Manchester City are desperately trying to bolt the doors shut against Real Madrid's scouts. A brand new contract has been placed on the table in front of Rodri, a deal designed to cement his standing as the finest defensive midfielder on the planet. Fabrizio Romano reports that the club has drawn a firm line. Either the Spaniard puts pen to paper, or City will demand an eye-watering fee for him this summer. The alternative, letting him walk away for nothing in 2027, would be an act of total self-destruction in the transfer market. The media have cheerfully pinned Rodri's dip in form on his mind being elsewhere ahead of a potential move to Spain, but the truth is far harsher. A ruptured cruciate in September 2024 and a grueling comeback in the spring leave their mark. The man is approaching 30 and he is visibly running on empty. And what does the club do? They ask a midfielder coming back from a broken knee to cover even more ground than he did before the injury. It's hardly surprising the tank runs dry quickly. The talk of his physical peak being behind him no longer sounds like tabloid fiction. To patch up the balance in midfield, City have turned their attention to Elliot Anderson at Nottingham Forest. The logic is transparent enough. The 23-year-old all-rounder would act as the engine alongside Rodri, taking on the dirty defensive work and masking the veteran's reduced mobility. But the final call, whether to sign that extension or board a flight to Spain, belongs entirely to Rodri and his family. And when personal lifestyle factors creep into hard-nosed transfer negotiations, the tactical spreadsheet tends to get pushed to one side pretty sharpish. Can City win this particular standoff, or are we watching the final chapter of his time in the Premier League? The British press never tire of a good redemption arc. According to the Daily Mail, Everton are seriously exploring a permanent deal for Jack Grealish. The journalists are waxing lyrical about his rediscovered freedom and instinctive play, though the actual numbers, 2 goals and 6 assists, in 22 appearances, are fairly modest. But the poetry ends the moment you open the accounts. The loan agreement contains a purchase option of £50 million for a player with 1 year left on his deal. That is daylight robbery. Everton's board are therefore pushing to negotiate the fee down to a far more sensible £20 million. The central sticking point in all of this is Grealish's wages. £300,000 a week. Even factoring in the fresh revenue streams from the move to their new Hill Dickinson Stadium, strapping that kind of salary onto the wage bill would effectively freeze their ability to strengthen anywhere else in the squad. So why did Merseyside get involved in this at all? David Moyes' pragmatic, straightforward football has turned out to be the perfect environment for Grealish to rediscover himself. Free from the rigid demands of Guardiola's system, he's actually looking useful again. A stress fracture in January threatened to cut the loan short, yet Jack made a point of staying at Everton's training ground for his rehabilitation. For the club's decision-makers, that is a clear signal of commitment. Ultimately, the board face a classic management dilemma. The player genuinely improves how they move the ball, but his injury record and enormous contract represent a significant gamble. Will City bend on the price, or will Everton have to walk away from their marquee target to protect the squad's overall balance? Barcelona are walking into a high-end boutique with an almost empty wallet. According to Florian Plettenberg, the club has lodged an official offer for Alessandro Bastoni, and the asking price is €45 million. Over at Inter Milan, that figure was met with the kind of laughter you'd expect, and initial talks were shut down almost immediately. For Christian Chivu's side, Bastoni is a cornerstone of the entire defensive setup. Nobody at the San Siro is entertaining the idea of selling a key asset at a knockdown figure. Inter's hierarchy have set their stall out clearly. The price starts at 60 to 70 million, and that is final. For his part, Barcelona have dangled a healthy pay rise in front of Bastoni, €7 million a year, up from his current 5.5, and he is predictably open to packing his bags. His reasons aren't hard to understand. He's been going through a rough patch in Italy, a painful red card while on international duty against Bosnia, and a deeply murky incident in the derby against Juventus. A change of scenery, a move to a club of Barcelona's stature, and a bump in wages to boot, that is the ideal professional pick-me-up. But from this point on, it comes down purely to the numbers. The gap between Barcelona's opening gambit and Inter's asking price is at least €15 million. For a club squeezed from every angle financially, that is a massive gulf to bridge. Any further movement on this transfer is entirely contingent on Barcelona shifting players out the door first. The sporting department will have to squeeze every last drop out of their resources to make it work. Will Inter budge on their valuation, or will Barcelona be forced into a fire sale to get this deal over the line?